We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. I love that quote. I've written it down over and over through the years because it resonates so deeply inside me. It speaks to a longing within each one of us. Do these words connect with you? Do you ever feel as if you keep coming back to the same place in life over and over again? Do you ever wonder why you can't seem to learn the lesson each time? I mean, maybe you said you'd never repeat the same mistakes or react in the same way, yet here you are in the middle of it all one more time. What I'm learning is, and this is huge, if I don't understand why I respond a certain way, I'll do it again and again. The human heart longs for closure and understanding. It longs to change the ending of those things in our lives that have scarred us so badly. Well, my prayer in this study is I can help you find the one true source who can meet your deepest longings so you can change the way you respond to whatever life throws at you. I want to give you real tools to help you heal and to find joy today. So during the next few weeks, we'll look at several ways we misplace longing for God with other longings. We'll look at the longings within each one of us to be chosen, to be protected, to have control, and to be happy. And then we'll take some time to explore how the longing for God's grace and the longing for God alone is really the only longings that can truly provide peace and happiness. All the other ways, they're illusions. When I looked for a companion to take along on this trip with us, there was no one finer than King David. He was known as a man after God's own heart, and yet he made choices that cost him and others dearly. As we walk through David's life during the next few weeks, we'll look at how we can reconcile with the natural longings we all have. We'll discover what we can do when we, like David at times, lose our way, sometimes very badly. And we'll uncover what it truly means to long for God and for God alone. In the chronicles of childhood, from infancy to leaving home, I think it's safe to say that our high school years rank near the top of the scale when it comes to intensity and longing. That's because many of the feelings we experience during these years are really for the very first time. We long to be liked by our peers. We long to fit in. We long to be someone special. And we long to be loved. When I was in high school, I had a crush on the lab technician in the physics department. I mean, part of me knew he was kind of out of my league. I mean, he was, after all, technically staff, and I was an awkward senior. Even so, I dared to dream. Well, one day, I overheard the popular girl at our school mention his name while I waited in line for the bus. When I learned that he was going to be at the high school dance, I blurted out, "Oh, that's so great!" I mean, I tried to cover my outburst, but with every pathetic word, the popular girl and her friends moved further and further away. Mercifully, deliverance came in the form of the school bus, which roared slightly louder than me. Well, on the night of the dance, I was dressed and ready 3 hours before I needed to leave. When I arrived, the music was already playing and people had started to pair up for a slow dance. Well, I just retreated to a corner and pressed my back against the wall, feeling that familiar loneliness creep over me. I looked around the room to find the friend I'd come with, but instead, I saw him walking toward me. The popular girl and her friends were standing on the other side of the hall, watching him. and me. My heart pounded out of my chest as he walked right up to me and asked if I wanted to dance. I don't think I even replied. I just took his hand as he led me to the dance floor. I rested my head on his shoulder as we danced. Then for a second, I pulled back and I looked into his lovely brown eyes. And that's when everything changed. "I'm so sorry," he said. I can't do this." He let go of me and walked over to where the popular girl and her friends were now laughing. It had clearly been a dare, a "why don't you dance with that awkward girl" stunt. I thought of going all Carrie on them, but I just slipped away and hid in the girls' bathroom until it was time to go home. I mean, even now, I can still remember that sickening feeling in my stomach. My longing to be loved, to be chosen, had betrayed me. I felt so stupid, and I was angry. I was angry with the popular girl. I was angry with her friends. I was angry with the lab technician. Most of all, I was angry with myself for thinking this fairy tale would have a happy ending. We all long to be chosen, to be protected, to be happy, and we long to be loved. And when those longings are unmet, what do? I mean, where do we go? Even more, when those longings are met, why is there an even greater ache that remains? I believe that this is a sacred ache, a longing for the very heart of God. I probably should show my hand a little here and let you into a secret I discovered that has changed my life. It helps me understand my past, engage fully in my present, and find hope for the future. It's a staggering truth that will rock your world. No matter how great your longing is for God, it will never, ever, ever compare to God's longing for you. That's my prayer for you today, that you come to embrace this truth and let it sink deep into your heart. David knew firsthand what it was like to not be chosen. He knew what it was like to be the outsider, the unpopular one, the one who got left in the shadows along the wall at the high school dance. Have you ever dared to dream for just a moment that you would get chosen, only to be disappointed and reminded one more time that you will never be that girl? I've often wondered if that's why little girls love fairy tales. Is it because they always have a happy ending? Maybe it's because we identify with a girl who gets picked, even if she's the least likely one. She's the one who's made to sweep up cinders while her ugly, mean sisters get ready for the ball, and yet she gets chosen in the end. Or she's the one who takes a bite of the poisoned apple, and just as it seems that all is lost, the prince arrives, and he saves her. The credits roll, and we imagine they live a perfect life. You know how it goes, happily ever after. Well, these are the stories of our childhood. But it seems today we need that story to take us beyond our childhood into young adulthood. In 1 Corinthians, Paul tells us that God chose things despised by the world, things counted as nothing at all, and used them to bring to nothing what the world considers important. I've often wondered how seriously we take that passage. I mean, think about it. We tend to value the most articulate and gifted among us. But God, He has a different set of scales that He uses to measure a life. God, He looks at the heart. These words exactly describe David, the man God chose to be king over all of Israel. Nothing about his early days would have made anyone believe that he would be the chosen one. Even his own father missed it. But then again, so did Samuel, God's prophet. We're introduced to David in person in 1 Samuel chapter 16. but we meet his character before that. In the last conversation that Samuel has with Saul, he tells him his kingdom must end. For the Lord has sought out a man after his own heart. And as we come to learn, that man is David. What an incredible commendation from God. It's like a letter of reference from the Most High. I honestly can't think of anything that I want more in life than to be that, to be known as a woman after God's own heart. God instructs Samuel to go to Bethlehem, where he had already chosen a king from Jesse's sons. Jesse was the grandson of Ruth and Boaz. Ruth's story in the Bible is really the antithesis of the children of Israel's. She wasn't born an Israelite. She married into the nation. But even after her husband died, she refused to abandon her mother-in-law, Naomi, remember? She traveled with her to Bethlehem saying, "Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God." That passionate faithfulness has trickled down through the years and would be found in a teenage boy out watching his father's sheep. God told Samuel to take a female calf and pay a visit to Jesse in Bethlehem. Samuel was to say he'd come to make a sacrifice to the Lord and invite Jesse to attend. God would then show Samuel which of Jesse's sons to anoint as king. Samuel did exactly as the Lord instructed. When he arrived at Bethlehem, the elders of the town who came to meet him were trembling, because in those days it was alarming for people to see God's prophet show up unexpectedly. It really is a comment on the times. As one scholar noted, the people were on a long drift from God. Well, word was out that the king, Saul, that they had chosen had turned crazy, and now here stood God's mouthpiece showing up uninvited. Well, Samuel assured them he had simply come to make a sacrifice to the Lord. He invited Jesse and asked him to bring his sons with him. When the young men arrived, Samuel took one look at Eliab, the oldest son, and knew he'd found his man. He was the one everyone would have chosen. He was the eldest, he was strong, very handsome, but God told Samuel that he'd already rejected him. He didn't pass heart inspection. Well, Jesse offered up the other 6 sons he'd brought with him, but each time God said no. Finally, Samuel asked Jesse if there were any others. And Jesse replied, well, there's still one more, the youngest, but he's out in the fields watching the sheep and goats. Isn't it interesting that Jesse didn't even think it was worth bringing David out? I mean, after all, who was he? He's just a kid watching the sheep and the goats. Yet while he shepherded in silence, God saw him. How many ministry opportunities do you think David had out in the field? None that you and I would have noticed. But God, he didn't miss one. He heard the psalms that David sang over the flock. He saw David's courage as he risked his own life to snatch a little lamb from the paw of a bear or a young goat from a lion. He discerned David's heart and knew this teenage boy who would sing in the darkness and fight in the light would be the one he would anoint as king of Israel. I really hope that encourages you, as it does me. If you tend to look at other women and compare yourself to them, this story should be a wake-up call to every one of us. I mean, even within the church and parachurch organizations, we often discern wrongly. We're drawn more by charisma than character. But here's the truth. Charisma cracks under pressure, while character doesn't. David never asked to be chosen. He'd been hidden away, serving God with a full heart when God's choice ran like oil over his head. I, on the other hand, had a desperate need in my life to be seen and to be chosen. And when need is in the driver's seat, you can find yourself crashed on the side of the road with destruction all around you, just like me. just like a woman, I'll call Mary. I never found out her real name, but I did identify with her story. We were sitting opposite each other waiting to board a flight. I asked her if she'd mind watching my bag while I went to get a drink of water. And when I got back, she'd moved to sit right beside me. She told me that she'd read one of my books and we had so many things in common. She told me that her dad was a good man, but he was always busy. Even when he was there, he kind of wasn't really there, if you know what she means. She said that when they had special dates, he'd miss them. Now, there was always some good reason, so she never felt she could get mad with him. Over time, she just got used to it. Mary told me that all through high school and college, she longed to find someone who was different, but she kept choosing guys who never kept their word. She always felt she wasn't pretty enough or thin enough. She just wasn't enough. At this point, we began to board our flight, and I never got to finish my conversation with Mary. By the time we landed and I'd made my way to baggage claim, she was gone. I prayed for Mary a lot that day. I prayed that she would know that God keeps every appointment with his daughters, even when we forget. Have you ever found yourself in a place like Mary's? Have your longings ever landed you right in it? Do you ever find yourself thinking that nothing will ever change? Well, I want to pause here and acknowledge how truly painful that is. But girls, I don't want to leave you there. As a daughter of the Most High God, I want to tell you that everything could change. It just takes some time and some commitment to begin thinking a new way. For the truth is, the God who created you has chosen you as his beautifully loved daughter. And because of that, you and we can take these rejections in our life in stride. I want you to think on that again and again until you begin to believe that more than the lie that you're not worthy of being chosen. The God of the universe has already chosen you, and he says that you are his.